Start?
Go.
Okay. Good morning, afternoon, or evening, based on the time zone from where you're joining, live or watching this recording on YouTube. And welcome everyone to an interactive panel on discussion on the cost benefit analysis of higher education. And we're bringing perspectives from Europe, India, and North America. My name is Soham, and I'm thrilled to be moderating this insightful conversation today. I'm a 2015 graduate from IIST Shibpur, and I completed my master's in Canada, and I'm currently working as a structural engineer in Canada. So before we delve into our discussion, let's take a moment to understand why this topic is so critical in today's world. So higher education has been long regarded as a pathway to success, offering individuals opportunities for personal and professional growth. However, with rising tuition costs and evolving job markets, it is essential to evaluate the cost benefit dynamics of pursuing higher education in different regions. So now it's time to welcome our panelists. So first up, let me introduce Shashwat Jha, who is a very famous senior on campus, and he was also the intro chief, CST General Secretary. He also scored high percentiles in CAT and SAT while being on campus. He scored 99.04 percentile in CAT and 99.85 in SAT. He joined XLRI Jamshedpur as a fresher right out of college and interned at Colgate Palmolive after his first year at XLRI and joined IDFC Bank after finishing his MBA. He has been a technology product manager at IDFC Bank since the past 3 years, handling the vast card and payment portfolio, which includes products like ATM, NEFT, RTGS, IMPS, UPI, credit card, debit card, and many more. Welcome, Shashwat, to this webinar.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Soham, for the warm welcome. Pleasure to be here.
No problem. Next up, we have Abhishesk Sharma, who is a dedicated management consultant and a financial advisor with extensive experience working with Fortune 500 companies and startups across Europe, US, and the APAC region. He completed his bachelor's in architecture in 2021 and further pursued research at NUS Singapore and the University of Cambridge before earning a master's in management from ESMT Berlin. Passionate about entrepreneurship from the outset, Abhishek founded several ventures, including Accident is Good, Flexible Living Space, and contributed to the creation of the first 3D printed house in India in IIT Madras. His achievements include over 20 international and national awards, a patent, and a book chapter. Additionally, he has invested in two startups and has been instrumental in the strategic growth of multiple startups across the country. It's a pleasure to have you with us, Abhishek, and welcome to this webinar.
Thank you, Soham.
And finally, we have Debjit Banerjee. So Debjit completed his bachelor's in architecture from B College in 2015 and later did his dual degree master's from Rutgers University in New Jersey in urban planning and urban informatics. He is currently working in one of the top infrastructure consulting firms in the US. Debjit is also the co-founder of DYNC, which is basically a news-based social media platform where you can get trending news as well as general public opinion on them. During his time in P College, he was a resident of Richardson Hall and helped organize Zonasa, which is a regional architecture competition in 2012. That saw about 19 architecture colleges from northern and eastern India. So welcome, Debjit, to this webinar.
Thanks, Soham. Thanks for having me.
All right. So let's kick off things now. And for that, I'd like each of our panelists to provide a brief opening statement on how they perceive the cost-benefit analysis of higher education in their respective groups. So over to Abhishek first.
Thank you, Soham. So I will be covering the European part. So in Europe, the cost-benefit analysis of higher education influenced by several factors, such as government fundings, are you going to public university, private university, its tuition fees, and the employment prospects. So I will be shedding the lights on these aspects later during our discussion. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks, Abhishek. Next, let's have Shashwat.
Um, I think there's something with my video.
Okay.
It's
Shashwat, let's have
that
Debjit and sorry.
the host. It says the host has disabled your video, so it's okay. Like I can go ahead with audio, I believe. That's okay. You
Yeah,
can
you can
you can start your video because the host has disabled it. That's the error that I'm getting. But yeah. Anyway. Hi guys, pleasure being here. And the diversity of higher education available in India is very vast, and it will be a pleasure to take you guys through uh, all the different ways and the different tiers of the colleges.
Okay.
Great. Yeah,
Thank you,
it's
Shashwat.
back.
And I think now your video is also back. So
Yeah.
thank you and like welcome once again. Next, let's have Debjit. Debjita.
Yep. Thanks, Shaham. I'm in the US, so I'll cover the North American aspects of higher education. North America of course boasts a rich tapestry of like different higher education institutions. But as we all know, that rising costs and like student debt is such a big problem here. So they're all pressing concerns. But yeah, I definitely look forward to exploring potential solutions that we can navigate as students from the college if we want to pursue a higher education here.
Awesome. Thank you so much for everybody's introduction and the opening statement. So now it's time to delve on to our interactive discussion. So our panelists, you can now feel free to engage with each other's perspectives and provide your insights based on your expertise and your experiences. So let's start with our first question, which is what are the primary costs associated with higher education in your region? So this can include your tuition fees, living expense, and any other related costs. So let's have Debjit to start this conversation.
Yep. Yeah, probably perfect question to start with the US and costs of higher education. But I think tuition fees, living expenses, those are probably the major ones, right? Majority of the colleges here have like very high tuition fees compared to anything that in India, especially like obviously the dollar and rupee exchange value doesn't help as well. But I think we should also factor in certain other costs like there's the tuition fees, but there's institute level fees as well. Health insurance is such a big fees here. I think my fees was like $1,000 for 6 months, which is like 80,000 rupees. It's like so much. And then living expenses is good, but like definitely like you want to be cheap about it. We all were very cheap. When I came here, I stayed in the living room and like I don't know, I camped out with 3 different people there. But you have to consider your overall health as well. Don't think that I have lived in B college, I've lived in hostel, I can sustain whatever. So definitely consider certain entertainment fees. Definitely consider certain fees that you'll have to like spend on food from outside and stuff like that. So yeah, probably do a budget for that as well. Like in short, like just like there's tuition fees, there's living expenses, but keep in consideration about those entertainment fees and certain institute fees as well.
Yeah, that's very aptly said, and I think we have all did that. Like when we first came in, we always started to convert the Indian rupee to our respective currencies, and it's always very tough to understand and see that how much more we are paying in tuition and all that. But it does pay off, right, at some point.
Yeah.
So let's So thank you. Thanks again for your perspective. Let's have Abhishek next to hear his perspective on this question.
Yeah, so I'm audible, right? Yeah. So Germany is well known for its public universities. Like most universities do not charge any fees, so it's free of cost, mostly the technical courses, except the MBA and management courses. However, if you attend private institution, the tuition fee is around 9 lakh to 30 lakhs for the entire course, so it's not that high as well. And aside your tuition fees, when we should consider about the living expenses, the annual expenses is around 7 to 10 lakhs as per your lifestyle. Thank you.
Thank you, Abhishek. And then, yeah, Germany is always famous for that. So thanks for bringing that perspective as well. Next, let's have Shashwat to hear his views on this question.
Thanks, Soham. So here in India, the scene is very vast. And firstly, I'll cover MBA and then I'll go to MTech. So in India, the thing which is common amongst all of these colleges are almost more than 90% of the colleges are residential campuses. So most of them you get accommodation typically inside the campus itself. So it depends upon your institute as to how expensive that would be. Usually in government institutes, the hostels are really cheap, and in private institutions, but still I would definitely say it's way lesser when compared to finding your own accommodation close to the campus. So the residence is provided by the campus, and in addition to that, the most important component is tuition fee. So typically these MBA colleges give you a broad estimate that look, this much is what you'll be spending, and there are very little expenses beyond that. Like, and also coming to the cost part, I'll take you through the spectrum. On one side, we have ISB, which costs the highest at 50
Right.
lakh pound for a year. And on the other opposite end of the spectrum, we have FMS Delhi, which charges hardly 2 lakhs for the entire 2-year MBA course. So it's a vast difference. Like there's a very vast diversity in India. And actually, you can do an MBA at even lesser than the FMS cost if you go to some small state government universities for MBA. You might be able to do it as less as 10,000 a year. But that is not something that we recommend students to do, because you should prefer to go to IIMs and XLRI, SPJN, the more established institutions. Now going to MTech. MTech is very different from MBA. The fees, the tuition fee is very less in MTech. In most of the colleges, almost it is not even existent. But even in IITs, if you see, there are fees, there is tuition fee, but the government gives you around 25-30,000 per month as a stipend, even while doing your MTech or even PhD. And then there is another scheme, which is Prime Minister's Research Fellowship. They pay you as high as 75-80,000 rupees a month. Now imagine
Right.
that is something that people hardly get even out of campus for jobs. So by doing research, you are actually getting paid even than people who are working in as freshers in jobs. So
Right.
MTech is a totally different ballgame. Mostly the cost of MTech is way lesser when compared to that. In fact, in MTech, I would say you're more in the money rather than actually spending out of pocket. So thanks,
Right.
Soham, for the question. Please go ahead.
No, thank you so much for your views, and very aptly summarized actually. So MBAs do actually cost a lot, but even in that we have so much of wide spectrum actually. So if somebody wants more affordable, FMS is really really a good option. And then ISB and FMS, I think they are of the same statute, right? So yeah, so actually very very well said. So with that, let's move on to our next question. So we did cover the primary cost. Now let's compare this cost across different countries within your region. So let's say we start with Abhishek, who is in Europe. So Abhishek, can you tell us a little bit about the cost comparison in various parts of Europe?
Okay, perfect. So I'll just talk about the three major focus near the Germany, because that
Mm-hmm.
also attract a lot of international students. The first one is
Okay.
France, the second one is Netherlands, and third one is Switzerland. So when I
Okay.
talk about France, public universities quite low, 1 to 2 lakhs per annum. So which is as
Okay.
good as India. And the private colleges usually charge between 7 lakhs to 20 lakhs per annum. And the living cost is around 8 to 12 lakhs annually. So when I talk about Netherlands, again the public university is same, 1 to 2 lakhs per annum. For EU students, for international students, it's 8 to 15 lakhs. Same for the private colleges. But the living cost is around 9 to 12 lakhs based on your lifestyle. When I talk about Switzerland, Switzerland many free universities which may charge you around 40,000 INR for an year. So which is like as free as like other German universities. At the same time, their living cost is around 12 to 15 lakhs. But Switzerland has some private universities which are really renowned one. The fees is around 20 to 40 lakhs per annum. Thank you.
Okay. Awesome. That's actually a very wide spectrum of fees. So you have a very high, you have very low as well. So that's very well said. And in terms of the difference, is there any like perspective on uh, or the difference in going to an institute which has a very high fee compared to the one which has a very affordable fee? Do you see any difference in like
Uh,
perception or?
So mostly the technical universities, people who are going for the tech courses, they usually go for the public universities. But slightly, there's a like pivot on the like MBA side. People, even if they have like free universities, they used to go to some private institutions where you can have a lot of networking. So there is a change here. Otherwise, mostly people try first for the public universities, and they are really good.
Awesome, awesome. Okay, okay. Thank you so much for that perspective. Let's get the perspective from US now. So let's have Debjit put on his views on this.
Yeah, US is obviously a completely different ballgame. Like there's no education almost, because there's even the public universities are so expensive. But definitely it's like slightly cheaper than the private ones. But like obviously within the region, US is one country, but then it's so big, it's almost like 3 or 4 different. It has like 5 different time zones. So and also since we are covering North America, you're probably better positioned than me to probably divest a bit into Canada. But within US, I would say the city, the costs overall will be higher. The tuition fees will probably be around the same, but the cost overall, the living expenses will vary a lot. If you live in the coasts, especially in a city like Boston or New York, if you go to NYU, if you go to Berkeley, that's probably the most expensive, as opposed to if you go to like an Iowa, Oklahoma, different colleges like that, which are in the Midwest, all good colleges, but the living expenses are a lot less. Tuition fees, I think they vary. It was around $33,000 per annum, which is nothing like as Abhishek was mentioning, 40,000, like nothing like that. I don't know how much 30. It's probably 40 lakhs or something. Probably a bit less. But then you get scholarships. One good thing about the US is like there is a lot of funding. So if you have a good SOP, have a good GRE score, you can easily get like a 50 to 75% funding for a master's. I'm saying PhD, obviously, it's all funded. But even for 100%, you can definitely get a 100% scholarship as well in different institutions. So that offsets your tuition fees, but then living costs are the major ones, which will be at least around $1,000 for anywhere in the coast if you're living very cheap. Boston, it will probably be $1,200 because you'll probably get an average house cost of $800 or something per month. I'm not like transferring this to INR because it's like I always did it like a multiple of 75 when I came in. Now it's almost 83, 85. So like it's hard to know what it will be when you come in, when someone like who's listening to this, a student comes in. But then that's probably it. So yeah, as I said, like Boston is almost 1,200. Berkeley, it will be probably 1,500 or something. As opposed to something like in the Midwest, probably be around 800. Probably be even like Iowa, you can probably go by 600. You can get a house for 300, and grocery cost and everything else, I think you can get done by another 300. So I think costs vary a lot between. I mean, tuition fees, it's probably the same. Private institutions cost higher, but living expenses are a lot more than in the coastal cities, where majority of people are.
Right. Right. So thank you so much, Debjit, for your views. And since you touched upon Canada, it's kind of the similar in Canada as well as part of the North America. So it's basically if you go to like bigger cities like Toronto or like British Columbia or places like that, universities do cost a lot more, and the living expense also increases. Whereas if you go to a city where there are fewer people, you do get a little bit cheaper. But here in Canada, we have mostly public institutions. So most of our universities are public. So there is the cost variation is not that much in the tech space. So if you're doing your master's in any of the engineering, like technical background, it's kind of similar, but in MBA, then the cost increase many folds actually, especially for international students. So that's basically, in short, what's the situation here in Canada. So let's now have some perspective from India as well. So let's have Shashwat to give his views on this.
So here in India, there's not much of a difference region-wise, but the main thing would be because we have more than 90% as residential campuses. So in fact, in most of the places, if you ask me, especially if you go for institutes in big cities like Mumbai, Delhi, or Bangalore, Kolkata, things like that, So actually, the accommodation is going to be much cheaper than what you would have got outside. There are people who study out of Delhi, and they're just staying in the Delhi University's hostels for like 300 rupees or 400 rupees per month rent, and they're preparing
Right.
for UPSC there. So that also
Right.
happens, because nowhere in Delhi you will get a room for 400 rupees a month. So it is extremely cheap, at least the residential part. And then uh, there is very little variation amongst regions. So I would say that it will be beneficial for you, like economy wise, if you go and live in a bigger city, you're kind of saving more.
Right.
And if you go
Right.
and live smaller city, the rate will be almost the same as that you get in the bigger cities. So yeah.
Right. Right. And yeah, that's very well pointed out. And I think during your studies, during your education, you don't have, like, because big cities also give exposure, right, to different industries and different job opportunities, right? But while you are actually pursuing your education, you can stay in a smaller city too. It doesn't matter that much. It's just that you have to travel a little bit for a job when you are moving into that sector. You can move into a new city as well. So yeah, that's very well pointed out. So now, since we talked a little bit about our private and public colleges, both in all the regions, do you see any significant difference in cost structure in those private or public colleges? And what is the general, like, how do the public, perceive like private or public colleges? Like, for example, in India, we, like, in the eyes of people, the public institutions are a lot more valued, right? Than the private. Like, not all private, not all public, but most of the public institutions are a lot more valued. So does that kind of transcend in the other parts of the globe? Let's start with Debjit on this question, maybe the US side.
The I won't say like there's much difference here at all, to be honest. Here it's like all the top colleges like Berkeley, MIT, then Harvard, like the major big ones. They're all private institutes. University of Michigan is private institute. State ones, I think they are slightly cheaper, and they have like benefits for people. Different. That's also like varies from state to state. US is like very diverse in that way that every state almost has their own set of laws in certain ways. But any institute with a state University of Michigan, state University of New Jersey, things like that, that means that that's a government institute, and that has like some benefits. Fees are slightly cheaper, especially for in-state people. But then out of state, there is no out of state. There is no like there's no benefits for them anyway. But the point is that private institutes here, and they don't judge based upon whether it's a private or public. The reputation of it is seen based upon the research that's produced, based upon the alumni association they have. And all
that. Okay. Thank you. And I think kind of similar in Canada as well, because as I said, we don't have too many private institutions. So we can't make the difference, right? Unless we have too many to compare. So let's have the views from Abhishek on this. Let's see.
Can you repeat the question again, Soham?
The question basically is, how does the cost of education compare among like public and private institutions? And basically, what is the public perception of between studying in a private and public?
Okay, perfect. So when you talk about the public are really good. So when you compare it with private are costly, but not that good brand wise. Publics are free. At the same time, they are like very reputed. And like the top minds from like the international students usually try to come to public universities, except few
Mhm.
management colleges.
Okay.
Management colleges are like quite costly. I had an option to go to public or private. I chose private because of the curriculum. For example, I can give you in my case, we had like lot of exposure. We did our NGO program in South Africa. We went to South Africa. We had one project in New York. We went to New York. We had like excursions. We were working with different CEOs, different training sessions, different exchange programs, which is not that frequent in like public universities. But at the same time, Germany is known for the research work. So research in public universities are quite really nice. So that's why people are really bent towards public universities.
Okay, awesome. So just a follow-up question, Abhishek, on this. Is there any language barrier in public universities? Is there any mandate on speaking the local language, or is it not like that?
So if someone is going for bachelor's, they have to have German language, but I don't think any of our audience is going for the bachelor's. So for
Right.
masters, yeah, mostly those who are going for either management or technology courses, they don't have to learn German language. But for other courses like civil engineering or like something in structure or like some core branches, they might need language. But the good thing is, whenever you're applying, they clearly mention it. And most of the German courses are really well funded, even if you're going for PhDs. For English courses, it's a bit tough, but yeah, they do have a lot of English courses.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you for bringing that perspective here. Let's hear from Shashwat on what the scene in India. Even though we like briefly touched upon it in our last question, you can
Yeah,
just briefly put up
definitely.
your views
Just
on it.
everything with you, Soham. So here we have our public universities are definitely considered cream, and a lot of public institutes, especially IITs, NITs, which we already know from the BTech times, and even the same is true for MTech. And for MBA also, IIMs are literally a brand throughout the world. So
Right.
they do have an edge over similar private universities like maybe XLRI Jamshedpur, SPJN, and NMIMS Mumbai. So these colleges, though private colleges, doing very well. In fact, they're much better than at least the smaller IIMs and the ones which have come up recently. But still we do have that it's not globally recognized. Because of that, I would say IIT and IIM tag is much more globally recognized than someone from an XLRI.
That is true. So thanks for putting that view. Yeah, global recognition and the university rankings, especially if you're moving abroad, people you want your university to be recognized where you're going, right? So that's a very important point that you brought out. So thank you so much for that, Shashwat. So in this
Before
question,
before
sorry.
moving on, Shubham, I just wanted to correct it. I think Shopanda corrected me. I misspoke a bit about Berkeley and University of Michigan being private. I think they're public universities. But the point states that I don't think they judge based upon private or public in the US. Carnegie Mellon, MIT, Harvard are all private, but they're still pretty highly reputed. So yeah, thanks Shopanda for correcting for audience listening in.
No, that's okay, and no worries, and feel free to engage at any point, like all four of you, it's fine. So we briefly covered the cost portion so far, and I think we got a lot of views. So let's delve a little bit on the benefit side, and at the same time, I see there are some questions coming on the cost side as well. But let's those get to those questions after we cover one or two questions on the benefit side from here, and then we'll take on the audience questions. Okay. Uh, so coming on to the benefit side. So what are some of the key benefits typically individuals derive from obtaining a higher education in your region, in your respective region, right? So anybody of you can start. Let's start with Abhishek, let's say. Some of the key benefits.
Perfect. So one thing is quality of education, which is very strongly aligned with the industry trends. So they are really moving fast with the trend, and it's not like India using like old education system and still they are following the same. So that's really the good case about especially the German education system. They are highly practical. Uh, I already told you my example. For me, I worked with the CEO of different startups. I worked in 4 countries. I went to different exchange programs, met different directors, working on latest trends, which was quite very significant. We met with different ministers of that particular sector in tech, and we learned how things are moving. Then you have to come out from your comfort zone, so which also gives you more more sense of that. Okay, I need to work it out, and that builds your self confidence. The third thing about Germany is it's quite affordable, which I've already told about. The fourth thing is it's a very international environment. It's not like US. US seems international, but they're not international. For example, in my class, we were more than 42 nationalities. So can you imagine,
Okay.
like you're sitting in a batch in a batch size of 120, and there are more than 42 nationalities in a class. So which gives you like different vibes, getting views from different part of the world and talking about the world. It gives you a whole different vibe. Networking is really amazing. So if I like still count on, there are many more. Like if I talk about the curriculum, the professors are also like who are already working in the industry and they are coming and teaching. So there are several benefits like when we typically talk about German education sector. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Abhishek. And just a follow-up question on this. Like you talked about your diverse cohort in your program, but is it only like how does this diversity in the tech part? Let's say somebody doing a master's in like technical, like civil, mechanical. Do you see that kind of like similar diversity? Do you have some idea about that, or?
Yeah. So I have quite good friends of mine who are doing IT and computer studies, and they do have like more than 15, 20 nationalities. They do have this in their cohort, and like, but their batch size are usually they are usually big, like 1,000, 2,000 students in a
Okay.
batch. So that's why like people from different countries are coming to Germany. That's why they have like 15, 20 nationalities. But it's not that small as like MBA or MIM, where you have like a lot of one-to-one interaction a lot. So slightly different for tech.
Awesome. Yeah, and that's really news to me because here in Canada we don't see that much of a diversity. We probably will see 4 or 5 nations, but it is you'll find people from one nationality a lot more than any other. So you'll probably have like minuscule 1 or 2 people from 3 or 4 other nations, but it would be the majority would be from one nation. So that's a very very diverse education that Europe is providing. So thanks for that view. Let's move on to Debjit and see what his views are in US.
Yeah, the benefits are like close to something what Abhishek listed as well. Like networking is a big benefit. Like what I've seen here is that there's no campus placements, right? In India, in most tech colleges, we are used to campus placements. We are used to that being done for us. Rather than here, it's like, okay, you have to network from the first day. You have to reach out to people. Either you do it on LinkedIn, or you do it something else, but you have to reach out to people and like almost like create your path to get into hiring. So that's tough in the beginning, but then it like pays off in the long run, I guess, where you're almost like taught to okay, this is cool, this is fine to like reach out, it's fine to like let people know that these are your interests, talk about it. And they almost like, at least in my like the career program in my college, they almost like you don't have to actually like land a job in day one. You can just like reach out to people, tell them your interest, and that's probably helps in like if someone reaches out to you and then tells you that hey, I need a job, they probably like you'll be like, hey, who are you? But then if you just like talk about your interest, and then slowly over like a year or two, maybe in the future, who knows, and it's not about your first job, right? It's about you want to like continue it, like maybe the next job he might like that person might be helpful. So that networking aspect, that definitely helped me a lot. The second, again, Abhishek touched upon this, is that you are out of your comfort zone. You're in a country where you have to speak English, know their like ways of thinking, like even like as little as like their cars go like from the right hand side of the road. So those little things you have to like get used to and everything. So, and that teaches you that there is like a different way of living. There's different people, different lifestyles, all of that. You might hate some of that, you might love some of that. Again, it's like it just shows you that there's different ways of living, different kinds of people, different religions, different cultures. That's always nice to get more of them. Not that we don't get a lot of diversity in India, but then again, it always helps. And the last thing, which is I think Soham, you said it's almost the same thing in here, is that it's diverse but not that much. It's like 4 or 5 countries at the most, and it's mostly American. It's like 90% Indians, or like Pakistanis, Bangladeshi, you can speak to them in Hindi, or like I don't know, they also that. So yeah, and cricket and everything. So it's almost like you don't have to like be really out of your comfort zone. You can be out of your comfort zone, but you can still have your we call here desi groups, where you can have like I don't know, parties and all of that, whatever, who share the same challenges that you are facing. So it's almost like you don't have to be completely out of your comfort zone. So that's the benefit, I'd say, that okay, you get a lot of people who are facing the same journey that you are at the same time. Yeah, so I think those are the key benefits that I'd say about having a master's in US or having a higher education in US.
Yeah, thank you so much. And yeah, I think kind of similar here as well in Canada. And I think the networking, how to do networking, it's a little bit. When I came in Canada, I didn't know a lot about that, but I think this country does teach, because we don't, as you all pointed out, we don't have like a defined placement process like we have in India. And probably Shashwat can talk a little bit more on that. But I think that as we grow, as we invest more time, we kind of get used to that process, and that really builds your personality too, right? So yeah, Shashwat, please go ahead if you have some views on this.
So here again in India, I'll cover the MBA and the Masters in Technology part separately. So, skeptics of MBA say that MBA colleges are nothing but glorified placement agency. They say that you don't learn anything and things like that. But that's, quite far from the truth. You do learn a lot in an MBA. You get to understand the problems that you face in real life from different lenses, like from finance, from operations, a lot of things. So it really opens up your mind, especially if you do it from a really nice institute. So, but yeah, a stark contrast between India and the rest of the world here would be that placement, at least in MBA, is provided by the campus. So there's a placement team which looks after placement. Now, when you come to top institutes, like the top 5, top 10 colleges of the country, their placements get done in as less as 2 or 3 days for the entire batch. Then
Right.
if you go to the lower rung colleges, they keep going on for the entire year. And even after the entire year, they're not able to place people very well. So this is the MBA part. Now coming to MTech, it's slightly different from that because, in MTech, what happens is there's a diverse bunch of, the diversity is there even in MBA. In fact, the diversity is much higher in MBA. But the diversity of expectations is what comes up in MTech. Like one thing which is common amongst all MBA students, though they come from branches as diverse as agriculture to maybe someone from computer science. But in MTech, though people come from the same background, their expectations are different. So someone wants a job after MTech, whereas somebody wants to do a PhD after MTech. So that is where, the placement things gets a little skewed because you don't know in a batch as to how many people want to really pursue an even higher education than higher education and how many actually want to get placed right after this. And it's not like you might think it's so easy. You just sort it out to the batch and they say that, yeah, no, I want to pursue higher. I want to do this. That's also not the case. People kind of sit for placement. If they get a good job, then they won't do a PhD. So it's very dynamic in tech. So in a lot of colleges, even the good colleges really struggle to place the entire MTech batch. So a couple of challenges there is that the MTechs are supposed to be at a higher package than the BTechs for just 2 years higher education, I believe. So there's that industry stigma also that, we have to pay the MTech guys higher. So those things keep coming in. Then there is a bit of dominance of the BTech placement committee, which also comes into play, that a lot of companies do not open roles for the MTech. So for MTech, you have to actually go for a totally different bunch of companies. So it makes it a lot more difficult in MTech. So in India, at least, MTech placements, if you're not from the top tier colleges, it's going to be really hard. So in most cases, you will again have to follow the path of your friends abroad that you might have to reach out to people and build your connections and try to get placed yourself because the campus placement of an MTech will not be that good. But MBA, you have to go there and, MBA, the skeptics say that, but yeah, they really give you a good placement. And one more thing about MBA, your package kind of determines is very much related to your fee. Like if your fee in an MBA college is 30 lakhs for 2 years, then the average placement is roundabout in the same area. So a college which charges 30 lakhs as fee for 2 years, when you come out of it after 2 years, you'll get a package of around 30. That's slightly different from ISB. ISB is charging way higher than what they give in their average package. But more or less, almost 95% of the MBA colleges, their 2-year fee is almost equivalent to the CTC that you get after completing your MBA.
So
So that's
that's actually, that's like, very well pointed out, and like a very defined answer, separating the MBA and the MTech. And we have all heard about those placement days in MBA college, right? Like day zero, everybody is aiming to get placed on that day zero, right? And but yeah, that's also, but yeah, as you said, MTech, I have also heard from my friends in India, it's a little bit of a challenge, especially the placement not as good as MBA, right? Even if you're doing from top colleges, right? It's just the way people perceive it. But yeah, so in the same lines, like what are your views in this topic, Abhishek or Debjit, if you want to take this, like basically MBA versus MTech, the perceived value, and also the perceived value from a public versus private, or a like a well-known versus a lesser known. So what are your general views? Let's start with, let's say, Abhishek on this.
Okay, perfect. So, in terms of job market, German companies or European companies really don't consider like the degrees. They really don't see your degrees. They see your skills. So it's a skill-based market. If you know the skill, you'll get the job. If you don't, because for example, for my job, I gave 7 rounds. So they technically don't see like which college you're coming from. They just want, for everyone, they do the same. And but like when I talk about the tech courses, I think those students who are in tech and wants to come to Germany, this is the best time. People are really getting crazy. I have like a lot of crazy stories. I have really good network, so we can also connect afterwards. But this is the best time for tech. Very getting jobs, English jobs is very easy, and things are quite like they want to shift from their mechanical manufacturing industry to the tech now. But slightly opposite for the management or MIM, where things are like, because most of these Europeans also wants to be the managers, and international students are coming, they also want to be the manager, and like then things gets like pretty tough, and you don't know the language. Or slightly on the promotion sides, like it's again slightly a challenge for like non-German speakers on the management side. But like this is the best time for tech guys who are like, and last year Germany has seen 215% CAGR. People are pivoting from Canada in US to Germany, and the market is also like shifting. So best time for people who are listening to me today.
Thank you so much for your views, Abhishek. And yeah, if people who are listening, it's a great opportunity in Europe, especially in Germany, right? So
Yeah.
that's pretty cool. Yeah. Uh, Devjit, that quickly, if you can give your view on this, and then we'll move on to the audience question.
Yeah, so I think I mean obviously I don't I haven't done either MTech or I did urban planning, and then like so MBA MTech are like fields that I don't know much about. But then before moving into the audience questions, I'd like to maybe highlight the fact that like there's definitely if you're coming to the US, especially not Canada, just US. So one thing you'd keep in mind that whether it's a STEM course or a not STEM course, I think science, technology, engineering, must major or something like that, because the difference is that and it's mostly an administrative US difference trying to limit immigration. It's basically if you have a STEM course, you get 3 years post study work permit, versus if it's a non-STEM course, you get just 1 year. And that matters because a lot of tech courses are not like, obviously if you do computer science, you can be guaranteed that that's a STEM course, but urban planning, architecture, fields like that, some of the universities might have listed it as a STEM course, some of them hasn't, because I mean, I talked to my university like dean, they said that it's like matters because like we don't get a state funding if we register a STEM course. It's something like that, whatever weird administrative things they have here. But so just definitely keep in mind that whether it's a STEM or it's a not STEM. Regarding like other benefits of different disciplines, obviously tech, you'll get a lot higher paying job. I think Europe is great, but socialism, so they have limitations on how much you can earn after. But then US, it's like, who cares? If you are great, I know someone who has gotten like a $200,000 job right after college. But even obviously, like everything is great compared to India, just because I mean, I'm not comparing with MBA again, but everything is great because of the dollar value. But then you spend a lot here as well. Rent is also high, so don't consider that. But then, if you are considering about getting a job and having a salary, definitely tech is a lot better. But then, I mean, tech is unpredictable. We know how the Tesla layoffs things work. Infrastructure as well, architecture. Just one more thing, yeah, and I know, but just one little thing is like infrastructure. Joe Biden, thank you, Joe Biden. He passed an infrastructure bill, which has given a lot more
Really
jobs,
solid, right?
like urban
Yeah.
planning, architecture, all of these fields, because a lot more bridges, roads, all of these are getting built here. So if you are in a construction management, something like that, there's obviously opportunities there as well now.
Abhishek, you wanted to say something? Yeah, go ahead.
Also, I just want to add with Debjit, like who mentioned about architecture in Europe. Just in a minute, I'll just complete it. So, if anyone wants to come to for architecture in Europe, Germany it's free, and at the same time you can get several scholarships like Dart scholarship, where they mostly give to architects a lot. So it's a good chance. Again, when I was at Cambridge University, I got MS from Cambridge, and it was 100% scholarship. So if someone is trying to go to Cambridge or Oxford, there is a huge chance in architecture that you'll get 100% scholarship. If not 100, like 70, 80% they usually give. And we have good alumni network at Cambridge and Oxford. So we can definitely connect you afterwards, like also. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. And thank you for that, Abhishek. I see we have some questions about doing masters in architecture. So I think that's a very relevant point that you touched upon. So moving on to the audience question, we have a question about the work permit situation. So how does the work permit situation look like in Europe? If somebody were to do an MBA in like any one of the European countries, or is it similar or is it different?
Okay,
So Abhishek,
so I'll just start. Yeah. So for Europe, the good news are coming in. Like during my time, I was like a bit confused between UK or Germany. UK was giving 1 year, but when I joined Germany, they started giving 2 years. Now Germany started giving for 3 years. France is giving for 5 years. So if you're going for France, you'll definitely getting PR or citizenship if someone is interested in that. For Germany, you can now get 2 years for sure, and you can extend for 1 more year. So 3 years work permit, which is quite lucrative, and they want to attract the international talent.
awesome. And on that note, Debjit, can you please touch upon briefly the work permit situation after you complete a master's in US?
Yeah, I think I touched briefly upon that. It's mostly if it's a STEM course, you get and this is after master's, of course. Yeah, and I think it's the same for PhD as well. So if it's a STEM course, you get 3 years, 1+2. Initially they give you one, but you get an automatic extension of another 2 years, and then within those 3 years, you'll have to choose whether the company will sponsor your H1B or not, and then lottery. If you're selected, then you get to stay more. So it's a very tough compared to that. I think Europe is a lot better, I think, nowadays because, again, 3 years, 5 years, and I think it gets renewed. It doesn't have to go through a lottery. Lottery is always tough. US is a bigger market, I think, still. So I think there are more jobs there. But again, since it's a lottery for their H1B, it's difficult. So definitely choose STEM courses. You get 3 chances at H1B. And after that, it's like it's whether you get selected or not. That's all. That's, I guess, on you.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for that. And here in Canada also, like once you do a master's in any tech, like say the master's program is equivalent to 2 years, you get a 3-year work permit. And usually within that 3 years, until now at least, people are able to convert that into like a permanent residence with, but because it's a point-based system here, so they kind of accumulate the point with education, experience, and all that. And they're able to get that get a permanent residence. But nowadays things are getting more difficult. So people are struggling, I see, because of more people coming in. But we'll touch upon that. Here's open work permit. Go ahead.
One last point, like for those students who just directly want to apply to Europe or something, there is no sponsorship such things in Germany, especially. So if
Okay.
I am sitting in Germany and applying a job, and someone sitting in India and applying a job, it hardly matters. Like it matters because you are credible, you have already experience in Germany, and you don't. They have to just give one extra document, which is slightly an extra work. Otherwise, there is no such as big task as in US or Canada.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you. Uh, Thank you for that. There is one more question I see, relevant one, based on the right time to start higher education. Do you think is it mandatory to get a couple of years of work experience, or is it good enough to start right after you're undergrad? What are your views? Let's start with Shashwat maybe. So you started right away, right?
Sure, great. Thanks, Amna. So, in India, when you go for an MBA, a lot of people say that, you should come in with experience. In fact, I joined as a fresher. I myself would recommend you to come into an MBA with some work experience because it helps you understand the course better. So, the sweet spot is 2 to 3 years of work experience when you are to come into an MBA college. So that is when you get the maximum points even in the entry criteria, and you also get a good placement. So anything beyond 3, then you become the batch's minority, and it becomes really hard in placements because you are being placed amongst much younger peers. So 3 years plus in a regular MBA is not recommended. People do it up to like 4 or 5 years, but after 5 years, a new opportunity opens for you, which is executive MBA. So if you have around 5 years of work ex, it really makes sense to go for an executive MBA, but not the regular 2 year MBA. An executive MBA is basically a squeezed down course of the same, and it takes just 1 year. But the costs are similar to almost 2 year MBA. So 5 year plus work ex, and as a fresher also you can join an MBA college, but it's not very recommended. Firstly, it's very hard to get in because there's a good amount of weightage given to work experience. So if you want to get into like IIMABC as a fresher, you need 99.9 plus percentile in CAT, 99.9, 99.8. So it's really
Right.
hard to get in fresh. But with 1 or 2 years of work ex, it becomes easier. You need a lower percentile, and moreover, when you give CAT 2 or 3 times, you actually learn from the experience. So I have a lot of friends who have scored maybe just 93, 94 percentile in the first attempt. By the time they reach the second, which is just with 1 year of work ex, by the second they're at 99, and by the third, which is the actual sweet spot, they reach 99.9. So that's a lot. So you get a sure chance into IIMABC at that. So for MBA, I would say the right time is actually 2 years of work ex, but you should start giving CAT like right from your final year of college, because the more experience you have with that, and not just that, not just give CAT, you should also go and appear for the interviews, even if you don't intend to join, because even those give you some
Right.
learnings. So this is the MBA part. Now coming to the MTech part, the earlier the better, because you don't, work ex really doesn't count in MTech. You have to get in there as soon as you finish your BTech. So that has to be the criteria for you, at least when you're pursuing MTech in India. Try to do it as soon as possible after your BTech is done, because else that those years will come count in as a gap year in most cases, because you will be preparing
Right.
hardcore for GATE. GATE is a
Right.
much harder exam when compared to CAT. CAT, I mean, the competition is intense in both the places, but the syllabus and the width of the study is very, very vast in GATE. So it's very hard to manage a GATE preparation alongside job, whereas doing CAT alongside your work is not that big of a deal. Hope that clears.
Very, yeah. Thank you so much, Ashwat, and very well said about when to start preparation as well. So thank you so much. Any views from Debjit or Debjit or Abhishek on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd like go with Shashwat, but like 2 years sweet spot to do 2 year or like higher education. One, because I'd say like once you go in the industry, you realize a bit more about whether you want to pursue with this or not. You have a better understanding of, okay, this was academics, this is the industry, this is what I have to do for like, I don't know, 40 years of my life if you don't want to open a business or something. So I think that gives you a different perspective. Also, obviously, like after masters, even if you, I know like MTech, you can probably delve in directly, but even having a work experience helps. Like, right, you know that okay, these are the things that they do in work. These are the things how it's carried out. Definitely, that also changes from field to field, discipline to discipline. But then it's mostly the same. There's a manager, way of way of being organized, right? Those are the things that's probably cross disciplinary. Another thing I'd like to touch upon slightly is that if you want to completely change your field, whatever you're done your bachelor's, maybe you've done your bachelor's in civil engineering, but like 3 years down the line, you probably see that, hey, I like something else more, biology or something else. That's a good point to do something higher education elsewhere, not in India, because India, obviously, master's has to be related to your field. But here in the US, at least, I don't know, I've seen like they've taken like art history students into data science. They don't really care about your background. They most, to be honest, but they don't really care about your background. But as long as you are confident that you know a bit of statistics in school, you know, have done maths in school, you want to go, doesn't matter, you can just change it. It doesn't matter. You can apply for a computer science program. You can apply for a user experience research program, even if it's not like, even if your bachelor's was not in a design background. So that's a good and bad. But then if you want to completely change your field, maybe go as quickly as possible to your master's. But otherwise, I'd say like having 3 year sweet spot work experience would be beneficial.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Debjit, for giving your views on this. And I think we are towards the end of our time. We still have a couple of questions, but we'll try to answer them in the chat. But I think it's almost time to end our discussion. So I'd like to thank all our panelists for sharing their valuable insights today. And the cost benefit analysis of higher education is indeed a multifaceted issue, right? And it has so many things to consider. But I hope our conversation today has provided some clarity and inspiration for our audience. So thank you again to our panelists. Thank you very much for joining today. And also, I would like to thank all our audience for joining today. And always remember, the pursuit for higher education is not just about cost and benefits. It's about the transformational journey of learning and growth, right? And like on behalf of IIST Shibpur Alumni Project Network, I would request you all to join our WhatsApp community group. We have a lot of other special interest groups, and you can choose the one that you're interested in. We have our community where you can receive even information, as well as we have our LinkedIn group where you can participate in various discussion about careers and celebrate success with our fellow alumni and the successes of our fellow alumni. And it is a great opportunity for networking because we have our alumni from varied areas of different fields, right, and in different positions. So thank you so much again, everybody, for joining. And until next time, take care and keep exploring new horizons. Thank you all for joining once again.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.